Good afternoon. Today, the weather conditions have allowed salvage inspection team to get back on board the Rena. This team have been winched onto the Rena, onto the deck of the Rena. In fact, they were winched into the region, when he goes forward one more, of the back. They were winched into the region of that white container so they could see really clearly the extent of the damage on the port side of the vessel. This inspection team, it's a highly risky operation to do this. When we were doing it, we had 2 aircraft on standby, monitoring the situation. We had RNZA of Iroquois, we had the salvage Spitzers, 20-engine Iroquois also on standby. We had Navy vessels sitting close by. We had RIBs, rigid inflatable boats, ready to go at a moment's notice. This is a really risky operation. And one of the things I'd like to ask the media is to please respect the airspace. When we're operating in this manner, we need to be able to get the people off the vessel really quickly, and so if there are other aircraft in the way, they pose a real risk to my salvage teams. And so please, I ask you to really treat that with some respect. Salvage team was initially on board the vessel for 2 hours. They then contacted us and arranged for an additional 2 hours, which we agreed to. And we've also agreed to, just recently, 1 more hour for them. So they're actually quite comfortable at this stage about what they're seeing on board. The priority of action that they had was, first of all, to assess that the vessel was safe for them to operate in. They've done that, and they believe that although it's creaking and groaning and making a lot of noise and still moving quite a bit, that it's okay for them to operate on at this time. It's only a 3-person team, so they weren't actually about starting salvage operations, it's an inspection team. The second, to see what the damage had been caused by the container collapses. If you go on, you can see that at the back of this picture that a number of the containers have moved over, and we've lost a number, we've lost 88 odd containers. But one of the things that they were worried about was the hoses that were being used to transfer fuel around the vessel. And so they were busy making sure that those lines were all undamaged or the extent of that damage. There are also the massive pumps that they have on board. They wanted to make sure that those hadn't been damaged during that period of time. The reports I've had back so far are that there is no major damage to their equipment. There is some, but not a major amount. They then, the next thing they wanted to do was to look at the vessel's systems. And they wanted to make sure that the systems that were operating on the vessel, they have to, one of the key things is about power and being able to operate the ship's power systems. And the moment they can do that, that means that they don't have to bring in generators to be able to operate some of the other power systems. They're unsure about those at this stage. The main reason is that when you put an engine on 22 degrees or whatever, tilt, it doesn't tend to work very well because the oil is not reaching the parts to protect the engine. So they think at the moment that the engines, the auxiliary engines, are probably not operable. You'll see in the picture behind me that the list has increased slightly. And you'll see that at the top side of the vessel, so that's where the sides of the vessels go to the deck, that the water has reached about that level. And you can see another white container down towards a small white container down by where the water is. That's where the other breach in the hull is. So you can see that they're about, one container on the other side is about 1 container width forward. So that's the direction of the crack across the vessel. Now you'll notice that the vessel is actually holding together okay at this moment. And we're lucky that we've got quite good sea conditions out there. There's not a lot of breeze, it's actually good conditions at the moment. So the options that can happen are, 1, the vessel stays where it is. 2, that it does, if there's further working in the vessel, that it could separate. And if it does separate, well then it could sit and rest on the reef. And that's what they've been doing also, is they've had hydrographic surveys being undertaken of the reef to see what the nature of the bottom of that reef is like and whether it's going to sit the vessel on top of it to form a good platform. And they seem to think that the vessel is turned around probably about 30 degrees, and that's pushing it more and more onto the reef, which is good news for keeping it up and out of the deeper water, which become the other options if it slips off. So that's the white container that I was talking about before, and you can see the gap in the hull there. And so you've got ingress of water coming backwards and forwards through that. And so you can clearly see that the holds that are in there are flooded, which is, it's a strange thing to say, but that's okay because that helps pin the forward section of the vessel onto the reef. And so it makes it better in the terms of the stability of the front part of the vessel. Next one. And what you'll see here is a bit of an accounting of the containers overboard. 88 containers. Of those, there are the large containers, the smaller containers. There are, I set people wrong this morning. The substance that is in the container that went overboard is alkyl sulfonic acid. And the way you treat that or you deal with that acid is you wash it away with water. If you spill it, you wash it away with water. So I think in this sense that container might be okay. But that doesn't change that within the other containers there is a whole lot of other things. Milk powder, rotting food products, timber and the like. Don't go near the containers, leave the containers alone, and they will have specialist teams come along and collect the containers and deal with them in a proper and safe manner. You can see here what they've got, the salvage team have got, is they've got a large ocean-going tug. This tug's got about a 120 bollard pull. That means it can pull about 120 tonnes in a dynamic, in a marine environment. So it's a very big, very powerful, very manoeuvrable tug. They use these in the North Sea and the like because they're very manoeuvrable and can do a lot. And you've got large rear decks which are great for handling large pieces of equipment. This has been connected to the vessel, not to pull it anywhere, but just to keep control of it, so that if anything did happen, they've got much more flexibility about what they do with that aft section of the vessel. That's a close-up of the anchor handler. And then the next picture you'll see is where I hand over to my colleague, Lee Stevens, who will take you through some of the dispersant issues. Thank you.